Are services still off limits to me?
What do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
You think you can take John Wick? You've got a nasty surprise coming.
How do you go about turning up the action in a series that's defined by its turned up action? And how involved are you in maybe conceptualizing some of these fights?
The conceptualizing, I had a wonderful director and visionary in Chad Stahelski. So just really, my job is just to try and do as best I can so that, you know, his vision will be here and I'm really the limit. Like, as much as I can do, that's as good as it's, you know, so for me, it's great to try and aspire to that vision.
Is there something you got to do in this film that you've never done as an actor before, and you did it and you were like, ticked off that box?
Yeah, I mean, to the action point, we were trying to do John Wick action, but also, I think, build it up, do different things. And so there's more complexity, more multiple people fighting. And then we have different events. So we have fighting on motorcycles. And to your question, I would say the horseback riding fight sequence, because that involved some trick riding.
What was that the most challenging scene for you? Was it the horseback?
From a pure, I didn't know how to do that distance to like what I started with to like what I had to do. That was probably the greatest distance. There's a sequence in there for the knife fight, which was probably the most physically intensive.
Why do you think these movies resonate with people so much? I mean, here we are, you're already on the third one. Feel like there's gonna be a fourth one. Why do you think people love them so much?
I don't know, but I'm really grateful and happy that some people like it. Yeah, I know why I like it. I mean, I think people, when I speak to people about it, they love the world. They love the world of the Continental, the characters that inhabit the world, the action. I think people like rooting for John Wick. Yeah, so I would say, and of course, the dog.
If John Wick discovered a time-traveling phone booth, what do you think he would do with it?
Where would John go? What would he do? Where does John Wick? I think maybe he would go back to that time he spent with Helen and just keep looping that. Just keep doing the 5 and then try and come up for a cure for what ails her.
You shouldn't be here. Nice suit.
Good to see you too. I need your help.
After this, we are less than even.
When you have a series that's defined by amped up action, how do you go about amping up the action even more? And where does that start? Does it start on sort of where the story logically goes, or do you look and say, what kind of fight has John Wick not got into? It's in this movie.
No, honestly, it's a little of both. It's mostly where the story takes you, and it's a lot of research. Just, you know, we go to a city, we'll walk around New York, and you get inspired by things. My grandfather, when we were growing up in Boston, would take me to antique stores. So I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if you walked into an antique store and picked up the stuff and started fighting? So we had this idea of, in Massachusetts, the Springfield National Armory, where you walk in, it's like a mini version of the Met, where you walk through the muskets, the rifles, the swords, and we're like, let's do one of those.
And then where does a horse come from?
We just thought Keanu would look really bitchin' on a horse. Him and I, we both love Westerns, so we thought that would be really fun.
And Halle, what did you see that convinced you to be in this film? Had you been searching for a badass role? Were you a fan of the first two and you were like, get me into this franchise somewhere?
That's what it was, because when I met with Chad, my role hadn't been defined yet really, or wasn't really written in the way it became written. But I was a fan of 1 and 2, and I just heard that Chad was doing 3 and he was looking for a female character that was kind of badass. And I thought, well, let me go meet Chad. So I went into Chad and I said, I'm gonna play this part.
And it must have been, I know that it was a lot of training, and with the dogs, and I mean, is that one of the most challenging things you've ever done in your career? Was
the
training?
Most challenging thing,
yeah.
The most physically challenging thing I've ever done in my career, for sure. I mean, I broke 3 ribs along the way.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't stop, and to Chad's credit, he just gave, I thought, okay, they're gonna replace me now. And he let me heal, come back at it.
Nobody's messing with Halle Berry now.
No.
After this film. But speaking of her character, I do feel like this character, of all the characters that have been introduced, could kind of go off and spin off, and we can get her own movie. Is that something that you guys have thought
very
about?
much. I've loved like two opposing characters. I always loved Common in the second John Wick, and I love Sophia in the third John Wick. I think those are two of my favorite characters outside of John Wick.
What do you think, Halle?
For sure, I think Sophia should have her own spin-off. There's so much to learn about Sophia, and there's so many more badass fights that are in me.
Yep.
I definitely think it should happen.
I feel bad for the stunt teams. Yeah.
And where would you personally like to see sort of John Wick, this franchise, go from here?
It's always fun to branch off. I like world expansion, to see spin-offs, to see different characters take the road and then intertwine back to John Wick. I think John Wick can take you a certain direction through our world, but it'd be nice to have other characters to kind of give you different aspects of our world as well, take you through different routes. I think that'd be really fun.
And Halle, have you thought about when your character is not, killing people, what she's doing in her spare time?
Bubble baths and yoga.
Bubble baths and yoga. See, he hasn't seen Instagram. He's not into 2020 yet. He does not know about Instagram or my Instagram. But Sophia, yeah, I do. I think Sophia, she seems to be a badass in this movie, but I think she has a big heart. She has a conscience. I think she's living for something greater than herself, like many of the characters in this series are, actually.
Do you expect him to make it out? A $14 million bounty on his head. And everyone in the city wants a piece of it. I say the odds are about even.
All right, so gentlemen, tell me, for moviegoers going into this film, what does John Wick 3 deliver that maybe the first two did not have?
Well,
More of the
Halle
same
Berry.
and different.
Yeah, that's actually a great answer.
Well, it is, because it's more,
Yeah.
you expect, what you expect. I mean, every audience, when they go and see the third version of the film, you don't want to change the subject entirely, but you want more of the same, but you want a difference somewhere. So you get to know more about Lance's character, which is terrific, and you get to know more about, because we've never, you might have think we've met in the film before, but we haven't. On the phone to each other, and we talk a lot. But we actually, and you understand our relationship with John, which is, he's our favorite assassin. And we'll break the rules for him a little bit more than anyone else. I mean, I gave him an hour, Fisherman gave him a weapon, and since then it's all downhill. And once the high table starts threatening me, not a good idea to threaten us. You know what I mean? So I think you get to know more about the plot-wise, and with the addition of, the great Angelica Houston. I mean, it's just the background which will lead later on to, Halle Berry, another good addition to it. So you get, bigger, better, more beautiful.
Lance, why do you think these films resonate so much with people? I mean, we're already on the third chapter. Why do you think they're so successful?
They're so, for an action film to be so character-driven, well, first of all, let me go, but just Keanu's character. There's something about John's character that you just, watching it, you just love the guy. You identify with him. So you identify from the beginning, even though he's a badass, can kick everybody's ass in anywhere, anytime, there's a vulnerability to him that's always kind of driving what he's doing, at least from the point that we first meet him in the first film.
Yeah.
There's a great, Keanu has a sort of a strangely attractive melancholia, plus a relentlessness, plus a deep attractiveness to as a person on screen. He has that quality which he is in real life. He's one of the nicest guys, terrific guy to work with, terrific guy to meet, and he translates that into this character. And having a dead wife and a puppy and his cat and losing his car, three things a man could not do without. Let's face it.
How far would you guys go to save your pet? Are you pet owners?
Yes, well, I am, yeah.
How far would you go to save your pet?
I mean, as far as I need to go. I mean, I'd like to think I wouldn't have to kill anybody, but I mean, somebody's trying to kill my dog. I mean,
Well, I change the water for my goldfish every week, but that's about it.
So you do have a pet?
No.
Oh, I'm joking.
I travelled to, no, it's like you travel, always have done. When I was younger, I had a rabbit when I was like 5. No, when I was like 2 and it died on me, so that was it.
We can keep this up as long as you'd like. But this only ends one way.
so people are going to go see this movie that maybe didn't see the first 2 John Wick movies. And so for somebody who wants to come in clean and say, I'm going to go see John Wick 3, haven't seen the first 2, what would be your message to them? How would you describe this movie?
Bring a seatbelt.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, I haven't seen the finished movie, but from what I've heard, yeah, make sure that you have some time to rest afterwards.
Totally. I mean, it really is an adrenaline ride from start to finish. I would say that, John Wick is this super assassin who is, the baddest guy in town. And this film places him with a $14 million bounty on his head, and all of the other badass assassins in the world are after him. And so how does he deal with that? Who are the characters that come into his life in this film, and how do they help or hinder, his ability to stay alive?
When your characters aren't either an assassin or working for an assassin's, like, what does an average day look like for your characters? What do they do when they're not assassins?
We were wondering about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. Well, first I'll say I'm wary of developing a backstory about the adjudicator that turns out not to be true, in the mind of Chad. But I feel like the adjudicator spends a lot of time doing things that are sort of calm or low key, like maybe a tea in the morning, taking some sun, maybe a crossword, maybe a puzzle, because when they snap to action, they really snap to action.
Yeah. And Zero is a martial arts teacher as well, so he's teaching teaching and training his shinobi.
Mm-hmm. How are you pet owners? Are either of you pet owners? Mm-hmm. How far would you go for your pet?
I mean,
they're like children.
I know.
So,
it's whatever it takes,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
What was the sort of most challenging scene to shoot in this film? Did either of you get hurt making it? Especially you, Mark. You get pretty crazy.
Well, thank you. The finale fight scene, we shot that over a period of 4 weeks, I think. And it was difficult because, well, one, it was, it's very intense, and there's a lot of choreography, and you saw the location that we're shooting at, so that alone is difficult. But to sustain that type of focus and energy for such a long time, that's not easy to do. But Chad at the helm and Keanu with all of his preparation and training, they brought it.
Yeah.
They brought it.
Yeah.